I'm here tonight with Avery, and she would like to read off a short speech for you all today.
I know we are on the brink of nuclear war, but I think that if
Nah,
I read this
there's no war.
lengthy rant out of my phone, that everything will be okay for everyone. Trust me. That right, boyfriend? You would say that? I can save the world reading this out of my phone.
Yes.
Okay. So I will begin. Sorry about the peanut butter
Oh,
M&M.
shit, I thought it was
Wait, what? What's wrong?
nothing. I thought it was like that 30-second thing on TikTok where it was gonna run out.
We've been making TikTok. Sorry. Okay. I'll begin. Hey, so I got some good news. So I'm gonna be staring at my phone, so he'll be giving you like all the eye contact. Hey, so I got some good news. You're perfect and everything's going to be just fine. Like, actually, you're meant to live your wildest dreams and easily. All you have to do is surrender to faith and love and peace. Maybe you've heard that before, but want to know why it's true? Well, behold at last, the unified theory of everything. I'm talking to you, physicists. The great mystery finally revealed. Reality exists. Because reality is a question of probability at core. Probability is the likelihood of occurrence of something. What is likely to occur? Reality is a question mark asking that question. The answer given is that what is cannot be defined in certainty. That's what quantum physics finds as well. That is what is most logical to conclude when any other alternative would be like believing that a prejudice mechanism akin to a magical evil dictator floating in the sky precedes probability selection itself. To say one thing would be more or less likely than any other one thing, because the second you define one thing, you imply every other thing coming before or after that thing, which is preposterous. Like saying black people are less important than trans Mexican people, or white people come before gay Chinese birthing people. The truth is that infinite things exist simultaneously at equal likelihood. That is the real reality, as it is just the least biased answer to the question of probability, because math isn't bigoted. So that is the foundational, real physics of everything. The experience of infinite possibilities simultaneously, everything, everywhere, all at once, should be the only experience, as that is the real reality. However, the real reality is the one thing that cannot be experienced because it is boundless, insofar that it cannot be defined certainly given conceivable parameters. So, what does reality do? Well, it doesn't just simply default to the experience of nothingness as we know because we exist at all. So, sorry, nihilists and atheists, but after all, is not nothingness just another something? Simply our own conception of like an empty space and consciousness, which is still just another equally profoundly mystical and quacky experience, although also bleak, maybe in the opinion of a human being, like any other would be. What is a something? Can consciousness, simply defined as the awareness of something and potential of something, be made out of separate operations? After all, what is the thing that is not perceived by anything but nothing, which is just one thing and necessarily infinite options? Quantum physics has indicated the irrevocable link between consciousness and potential selection, as well as a sort of probabilistic infinite alternatives indeterminate wave state when no one is around to perceive anything. A perception then defines potential is simultaneously representative of potential itself. What exists ultimately can be thought of as a sort of infinite mind of imagination, with no certain borders, that was never created, has simply always existed and always will outside of space and time, though paradoxically it is the one thing that can never be experienced in its totality. It is the highest dimension in that it is the real layer of reality for its voidness of presupposition, aka time and space and definition, from which all else that can be experienced gets its origin, connects back to, as all things are actually this one thing deep down. This one shared core foundation is a secret, eternal web and fountain which unites and gives rise to all things. So, answering the question, though, of what is experienced when what exists by definition can't be experienced, is what we see, and that is an infinite number of hallucinatory, for their necessarily incomplete nature, specified fragments of the infinite mass, which themselves, yet in truth, cannot be defined certainly either. That is, when you look closer and closer, as we find with quantum mechanics. But alas, the universe tries, and we would know because we exist. Well, we know now we appear to exist, but ultimately don't exactly either, at least as we have come to define ourselves as distinct separate identities with distinct separate experiences. It's difficult to understand and transcribe because to define the truth is literally to define the definition of indefinition. So time and space and experience exist because it has to attempt to define the indefinite in lieu of no other option, but in truth do not exist and wouldn't exist otherwise. What is simply too big of a pill to swallow without being broken into chunks, exactly like a sort of universal multiple personality disorder, with the biggest severing trauma being just the scale of infinity. So here we are. Your conscious perception of your environment is you shining a flashlight into the infinite ink blotch test of infinite potentials to match the perception like a dial tuning into a television station. Every conceivable thing exists overlaid you, before you, but for whatever reason you have configured and taken form as this exact, not exactly moment of the infinite that exists at exactly the same moment as every other alternative simultaneously. The one true television station is the one that is indefinitely off limits for its inconceptual complexity. It must say something about you to find yourself here then. Have you manifested it? This is like your best guess then, us sitting here. Is it like looking into a mirror, the reality in which you find yourself? How is that when you are in the very most fundamental physics sense necessarily the entire infinite universe at once unified because you are exactly one with all and who that surrounds you, despite any apparent fragmentation, just like in the case of dissociative identity disorder, because time and space do not exist to separate you with anything actually except as an illusionary experience necessarily to define at all something to exist. Again, because the only non illusionary true state of everything all at once is that you and everything else at once truly is at core, the foundation of existence infinite. So, despite what you see when you currently look in the mirror, that's not the real you, because the real you is unknowable. So, who are you? Incredibly, you do still get an answer, kind of like an enigmatic God. If God can be defined as a perception, which is simultaneously the experience of everything simultaneously at once, all knowing, all powerful, always has been, and always will be, God, in this definition, is the only thing that truly exists. It was never created, it just has always been and always will be. It's just the one eternal answer to the call of probability. This is what some people claim to know when they have like an ego death or whatever on DMT, or maybe have like a near death experience life review where they see from infinite perspectives all at once and realize they're simultaneously a drop in the ocean and the ocean itself sound familiar, but they fail to fully remember or know how to explain exactly afterwards. And the difficulty is because God is boundless. It cannot be conceived of in its entirety. This is the paradox for knowing all things at once. It's just the same as knowing nothing, as you would know no one particular thing or experience over any other. God cannot be defined, computer says, error cannot compute, and this is what gives rise to the illusion of time and space, individual identity, and ultimately the reality we find ourselves currently. Infinity is necessarily broken down into parts which can be conceived of. We fulfill infinity with our individual perspectives or egos, if you'd like to call it that. Think Alex Gray artwork. Think Matryoshka dolls for visualization. Those Russian dolls that like fit inside of each other. There's like a smaller one and then bigger ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Each perspective, potential is interconnected, forming a whole, God, our higher self, if you will, which can never be known, observed in its entirety. We must remain unconscious to ourselves to a certain extent lest we become indistinct against the infinite, and in doing so cease existence altogether. Symmetry is everywhere in nature due to the oneness of all things, our shared time and space ultimately, but it's an imperfectly perfect symmetry. This is according to physicists. Only imperfect enough existence isn't cancelled out altogether. Imperfect only due to its unending nature, at the same time, paradoxical. It is this paradoxical nature also which I postulate gives rise to the many forms of duality we see present in our world. Sleep and wake states, yin and yang, male and female, negative and positive, and so on and so forth. If this wasn't the case, God mind would be our only experience because that is the real reality. 2 Corinthians 4:18. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. We can, however, understand it conceptually enough and prove its existence on the quantum level enough. In lieu of the initial blind faith required in the past, today one can believe in the unseen God through the simplest, most basic logic, as I have showcased. We have arrived at the day vocabulary and threshold of observable reality is suffice to view this. Okay, so moving on to practically understanding this and applying it to living life. What are the benefits of knowing this aforementioned quote unquote faith? Well, all things are just the expression of the one true thing, right? So love is the law because we are all one, as we are all perfectly united, physically speaking, in truth, located in one singular shared space and time, in the truest actuality, in the highest dimensional sense. Harmony and perfection, which love is but an expression of, true unconditional love says, I am you and you are me, is law because all is one. There exists no genuinely separate entity to conflict with that. What is, and that's basically it. The rest is just infinite and sort of arbitrary Outside of individual context, perfectly geometric for its non local overlaid nature, creative expression to express this one true infinite harmonic core of everything. Onto the natural world, it becomes clear the balancedness, the interconnectedness, the beauty that is natural to the world for the underlying physics, which is the unification of all things. Perfection, defined as an underlying structuring as exactly unified, is the one real physical law. Remember Einstein's issue with God playing dice? Well, Einstein, God is dice, but God is paradise, not just a pair of dice. Get it? Things get their seemingly perfectly deterministic nature from their quality of necessarily being a perfect reflection of the best guess of who is doing the observation at all times. When perception and potential share perfect oneness, in other words, you can never be anywhere but exactly where you're meant to be, experiencing exactly what makes sense to you the most, as you are the one determining the experience. Except for delusion, aka fear, reigns. The potential for delusion and chaos must be fulfilled, even if it does not resemble the natural law born of oneness that underlies it, for infinity's sake. For the sake of theatrics, amidst the infinite tapestry, think of the story of the Garden of Eden. The apple was the knowledge of good and bad. It is the unenlightened critical mind which facilitates our fall from grace. Perfection's defile is illusionary because all is one. In other words, if one would like to believe in conflicts and perhaps in enemies, one will experience them, but in truth, you can only be at war with yourself because only one core identity actually exists, which we all share. So let go of any beliefs which may permit friction, sort of, or exactly like as instructed in the New Testament or by law of attraction, folks. And so do you release the experience of strife to again knowing the truth of the perfection and eternal divine balance that necessarily, as physical law, surrounds you. Stop hitting yourself. A visualization to help better understand this point is this. Like coal is carbon in chaotic structure form, but always has the potential for crystalline structure and diamond laying dormant within it. So are we in our disillusioned states. There is secret order in all chaos. Chaos is really pretend. If there is chaos, it can still only be perfection, really, beneath the facade. Everything happens for a reason. What if I told you our nighttime dreams may seem chaotic and random, but that is an illusion which arises when we are thinking and operating in a fallen state, because they're actually speaking to us in exactly our own language and are meant to assist and guide us perfectly throughout our lives, and that we will begin to decode them seamlessly the moment we finally view them through the proper lens, aka through love. I repeat, harmony and divine order is what arises from the oneness of all things. No conflict is true. So, practically applying this just looks like love yourself and love others at equal with yourself, for they are an extension of yourself. And you are an extension of them. Everyone loves me. I love everyone. Perfection is reality. All there is love, is the mantra. And go about doing what you would naturally from there, and you will know harmony or heaven-like existence, beauty, genius, perfect chance encounters, good humor, living out your wildest dreams, soulmates, having a vibe, or just some examples of the natural expressions of the perfected harmony born of the oneness which constitutes our true base reality. Namaste. I think that means like the soul in me is like the soul in you or something. Namaste. I am certainly opinion, and then here I'm just going to quote Aleister Crowley twice for some reason. I am certainly of the opinion that genius can be acquired, or in the alternative, that it is an almost universal possession. Its rarity may be attributed to the crushing influence of a corrupted society. It is rare to meet a youth without high ideals, generous thoughts, a sense of holiness, of his own importance, which, being interpreted, is of his own identity with God. 3 years in the world and he is a bank clerk or even a government official. Only those who intuitively understand from early boyhood that they must stand out and who have the incredible courage and endurance to do so in the face of all that tyranny, callousness, and the scorn of inferiors can do. Only these arrive at manhood uncontaminated. Do as thou wilt, love is the law. Those are Aleister Crowley. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever shall know himself shall find it. Ancient Egyptian proverb, but there's also like something exactly like that in the Bible. This last part is me again. Monsters vanish in the dream of a dreamer who realizes they're the one dreaming. No one wants to be evil, is truly evil, beyond the layers of self delusion, because evil is always merely self harm on the realest level of reality. You can't understand the psychology of everyone else, their true motivations, their issues, through intuition and having the wisdom of truly knowing yourself, as they have the same core identity as you. You are love, meaning perfectly interconnected with all at core, just as all are. Harmony within is harmony without, and vice versa. Chaos within is reflected outwardly. Unto the pure, all things are pure. Unto the defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. Stop projecting. You see in the world what you carry in your heart. Realize, realize, realize. You can understand anything using intuition and the wisdom form of truly knowing the self. All the answers are within you, necessarily overlaid you, one with you. When you're tripping balls and you lose your cool, the advice is surrender and let go. When you fight with the world, you get a fight. When you surrender to it, you get a perfect trip, just what you needed. You can have anything you wish, because in truth, it already exists at equal likelihood as anything else. It's literally a walk in the park. Just remember that if it doesn't serve the all, it doesn't serve you ultimately, which is why many don't get what they wish for. It's not actually what they wish for. After the truth is added to the equation, thank God for that. Built in protection. Remember, and realize also it'd be more harmonious to not know every step of your own unfolding of heaven, though. Trust the universe to deliver it to you like you trust your next heartbeat and the rendering of the next tree in front of your face. You don't have to manifest harmony. Harmony happens naturally, so it's more of just knowing that and trusting it instead of sabotaging it. We're like God, but God's on autopilot 99.9% of the time. And thank God for that. What work it would be to create everything. Technically, no one has to do that because it's all already existing. And we're just gliding through it via our own will and fate to experience this instead of the true alternative for the reason I've already stated we cannot. It is infinite. Create what you want by moving towards the general gist of what you want and trust the divine order and plan for everything else as it necessarily has to deliver what is in most agreeance with your soul, which at least for me, but I think also for you, includes some level of surprise and suspense. I think that just be just must be one of God's universal personality traits for God's boundless quality. We don't like to know everything, that's too much and destroys the fun. Remember also when navigating life that technically the future has already happened and it was perfect. So think about it like you're just hopping on and riding an unending perfect roller coaster ride. Once you've surrendered to faith, stop the act of jumping ship whenever you panic, that is. Ask for dream messages and insights if you wish, but know all is going as it should, as long as you follow your heart and believe and are tuned to the highest disposition of love. Sounds like a Disney movie, huh? I was only able to find the answers within me because I never stopped being the fruitiest little girl at heart. And I hope you too find this in your heart because I know it's there. If you try some time, you might just find. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Anything, Jacob?
Thank you, Ivory.
You're welcome.